Radio Podcast, episode 114. Your place for the horological hot takes, taboo topics, and often unpopular watch opinions. I'm one of your co-hosts, Bro Dinky. With me, as always, is my co-host, Mr. Schmidt. Schmidt, how you been, bud?
I've been good, man. How are you doing?
Very tired. Got a lot on my plate. Got a baby coming.
I
And
know.
I've been doing some road tripping. Last time we were talking about how I went to Philly. I moseyed down to DC for the District Time show, which was a
Okay.
lot of fun, which we get into in a minute. But yeah, so I've been doing a little trotting up here in the Northeast as of late. And aside from that, just trying to keep the old head above water, if you feel me.
I do, man. It's a revolving battle. It's a constant fight, and it's not getting any easier for us to sit down and record these episodes. That's
No,
for
no,
sure.
it's not. No, it's not. But regardless, we persevere, we plow through, and here we are. But yeah, so last week I decided to just take a trip down. Drove down 4 hours, hung out, went to the show, drove 4 hours back. Kind of a quick hitter, kind of a nuts little trip, but it's a good time. It's a fun show. It's a very personalized experience because it's not nearly as big as like a wind up. Although this year it was definitely, I would say, probably twice as big as last year as far as the number of people.
Wow. I mean, it's
So
good though. It's good. I mean, the thing is, we don't have a lot of these shows.
no, we
It's
don't.
like you got Wind Up, you got Chicago Wind Up, you got New York City Wind Up, and that's kind of really the biggest gatherings. And outside of like individualized collector groups, it's nice to see that we're seeing more of these things pop up and more people flocking to them. I just wish that, we started to see some of those things my way. It's like there's nothing in the middle of America really
Yeah,
outside of Chicago. And it's like, yes, it's an area that people can congregate in, but there's nothing, in the middle of the country. And there's nothing, that I know about on the West Coast um, that's consistent at least at this point. So I wish they would do more. Wish they would do more.
yeah. So and just in speaking with people, they were like, "Wow, yeah, it's actually crowded this year. Like last year was you had plenty of room to walk around. It's probably maybe a couple more booths this year, but pretty much same layout, but noticeably less shoulder to shoulder space this year." And especially having people like Seaward there, having Formex there. Yeah, there was definitely a little palpable buzz there, but it was a lot of people. It was a good time. Uh, Thanks to Sal Baltimore and the Time Bum who put that on. They're a local watch brand, I should say. Sal, and they're kind of like the headliner. They're like the home team there, which actually funny
Yeah.
enough, they actually do a watch with the Ravens. I picked one up and I happened to go to the guy. It was purple. I said, you got to get one of these for the Ravens. He goes, actually, we have one that we do with the Ravens. I was like, oh, it's kind of sick.
You're talking about the football team, like the
Yeah,
Baltimore
yeah,
Ravens?
like the
Oh, no
Baltimore.
way.
He was telling me like how many of them have it, and I was like, ah, it's actually kind of dope. Like
It's super under the radar. Like
there
I
were
would
like
have
some
never,
good players too, like some actual
yeah.
good players had him. It wasn't just like you know
Wasn't the
randos.
wasn't the fourth string kicker?
I didn't want to say the kicker because their kicker is actually a stud, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but yeah, it was pretty neat. I saw our buddies from Haim and Les Sablier,
Nice.
uh, our bud from Far and Swit, who was kind enough to kick us in a watch this year as well.
Ooh,
Yeah, for last year's giveaway, that was nice. Shout out to listener Anshi. Thanks for showing me around. He's a local guy down there. Uh, I didn't think that many people knew what I looked like, but on upon walking in, it's always nice when somebody says, "Hey, there's a celebrity here," and I'm like, "All right, hold, pump the old brake, my friend." But no, it was fun. He kind of walked around with me, introduced me to some people, some local collectors and brand owners and stuff. So that was neat. Um, Hung out with Kathleen from Red Bar for most of the time.
nice.
We were like the New York faction.
Yeah, the New York transplants hanging
Yeah,
out.
exactly. And then after the show, we actually went to hang out with the DC group, which was cool. So thanks
Sweet,
to
man.
those guys. Nice to meet them. That was a lot of fun as well. I gotta say, I didn't think I would see one of the more impressive watches I've ever seen at this show, but I happened to go to the Gavox booth
Okay.
and my dude is there and all I know is he starts talking about a like a I can't remember. He said something like a flabbergasting watch, and I was like, all right, well, let me see what this is about, right? So this dude pulls out this watch, and it kind of just looks like maybe it's got like a retrograde second or something. And I'm like, all right, this is cool. I can't even remember what this thing did. All I remember was it was a chronograph. Then you push the crown in, it completely sets the hands different, and it's like a GMT moon phase. You push it again, it goes to something perpetual calendar, and it's all the same amount of hands, and all it does is just it relates to different markings on the dial. It's an insane watch. I'll have to find a picture of it, but like
I
this was
think
one of
did
the
you post this or you put it on a story or something? I think I remember you
I
see. I
I
remember
did,
seeing
but
it.
like I wish I could have got a video of him using it because I
Okay.
was just like, holy crap. Like it was cool. It was damn cool. And like it's insane. Actually, Kathleen said they got it in for review. She was that impressed because I told her she was there the second day. I said, go back to that guy and have him demo this thing for you because it is insane. And it is. And he's even said, I think he said that he sold the tech to like a couple of big names. I want to even say one of them was Tag Heuer, but I was just like, bro, this is impressive. Like insanely impressive.
That's so funny. And this was I'm assuming it's a pilot's watch, yeah? Because that's kind of their big
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah. So it just it was insane because it used the hands in a different way in every mode that it was in, but they didn't like, there was no repositioning or anything. All it did was
Yeah.
just use the markings in a different way. It was so interesting.
It, you know what?
There was even like a leap year around the rehaut. Like it was really interesting.
It's
I
funny.
was like, this dude has
It
thought of
almost
everything.
it almost sounds like a it almost sounds like a TISO T-touch. Like where you would like hold the dial, like you hold the crystal or something like that, and then the hands could like they would move like together and they would make like a compass, and like as you turn, the hands would turn to point north,
It was a
stuff like
little bit
that.
like that. You know what?
Yeah.
The running joke was that it was like the Casio world timer, but it was analog. Like think about everything
That's
that thing
so crazy.
does, like
Yeah.
countdown timer, chronograph, world time, GMT, moon phase, and it was all analog. It was just insane to watch. It was just it like that's what we talk about when we say like something is truly like mechanically impressive. Like that's what's
Yeah.
interesting about watches when you try to explain it to like a like a non-watch person. You're like, these are impressive machines. Like there's a ton of tiny gears and things that have to be synced up perfectly. The amount that went into that watch is crazy. Like I
It
bet you there's
sounds
a
like it.
demo. I bet you there's a demo online you could find. I don't know the name of it. I forget the name, but it was very impressive.
Was it the Aurora?
I think it is. I think it's the Aurora.
Okay.
That sounds right.
It's on the website, but I can't find an image right now. It's not loading on my end, but um that's interesting. I want
It
to see
was
this.
definitely check it out. It was
That's so cool.
quite fetching. But yeah, aside from that, I saw a lot of cool pieces, a lot of neat things from brands you don't see very often. But um also some brands that you kind of see around the way, but you don't really get to mess around with. Like some of the people that have been on with our buddies Matt and Greg, like Bremoire were there and stuff. So always nice to check them out.
Hmm.
A couple of the brand owners of people doing the booths remembered I was there last year, said hi to them again. That was cool. Um, yeah, just it's neat to see what they're doing at that level, because they don't really play by the rules that all the big boys play with, and they kind of get to do their own thing, which is always
Well,
neat.
it's still, relatively like a small show, so it's like
Yeah.
there's a little bit more freedom, there's a little bit more independentness. I know Warren and Watch Time with Warren and Wound, it's a great show, but it's really expensive for a lot of these brands to attend it. And it's getting more expensive every single year because the popularity is getting bigger and they need more money so they can get bigger venue space and all that stuff. But the investment now is getting crazier and crazier for these micro brands. So it's nice that there's still something out there that they can get their name in front of clients and actually showcase these things,
Yeah,
which I think is cool.
it kind of reminds me of the old wind up. Like when I went in like I don't know 2017 when they were still in Chelsea Market. It was kind of a small space, kind of looped around serpentine style. Everybody was kind of packed in there, but it's fun. It's still very like down to earth with that regard. So
That's cool, man. That's
yeah,
cool.
cool show. A lot of cool people. Thanks to everybody who said hi, gave me the time, shared a drink with me, whatever it was. We had a good time, and yeah, I guess that'll be a thing. I got offered to stay on a few couches, so that's also good. So I have a place to stay.
Nice, nice. So maybe when you go back next year, you can crash.
Yeah, so that would be ideal because the drive back at the end of the day was not awesome, but
I can imagine. I can
yeah,
imagine.
yeah. Aside from that, yeah, how about those Oscars watches? Just kidding. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't even watch the Oscars, nor do I
I didn't either.
give
I
a
mean, I get the
rat's ass
recap
what
on
they
I
are
get the
wearing.
recap on social media, and it's all these like hyperinflated pieces. I mean, there's some cool like more pedestrian stuff. Like there was a couple like Omega like DeVille Prestiges
Actually,
and
I saw
Trish scores and
who
stuff.
is it? I don't even know how to pronounce his name. Killian
Oh,
Murphy. Yeah,
Killian Murphy, yeah, yeah. He had like the Green Dial Prestige, I
yeah, I
think.
saw that.
It's nice. I mean, I would watch myself. Um, but some low key stuff. But then there was stuff that's just like crazy, crazy.
Yeah,
Like,
the Gaz is wearing a tag.
yeah, but did you see which one he was wearing?
Yeah, I did.
I mean, he's wearing the concept with like the diamond crown and the full, diamond dot. I'm like, okay, yeah, because we can all get that.
You and your Kenergy.
Yes, you are enough. You are enough.
And also kind of funny that it happened to notice this week. I don't know if you happen to notice this as well. All of a sudden, everybody's got an interesting take on Cartier. All of a sudden,
You know, I it would be funny if it wasn't so sad.
just saying.
It,
I'm just
it, it's
saying
just
it.
all of a sudden out of everywhere, everyone's covering it, and I kind of feel like that was
But like,
due to us.
but
It's like,
not the same coverage it's been getting. That's the interesting part.
yeah, it's less influencer coverage
And more like, hold on a sec.
and more like, why is everyone all of a sudden like Cartier coverage? And it's like, okay, that's odd. That's interesting. But no, you're absolutely right. It's been funny when you've been sending me messages and stuff back and forth all week leading up to this episode where we've been talking about that. I'm like, it'd be funny if it wasn't so sad.
And actually, somebody, friend of the show, sent me a meme of it was like supposed to be a Hodinky back when, like way back when versus Hodinky now type of meme, and
Oh God.
it's like a wild dog on top. It's like Hodinky 2018 on the bottom. It's like a pug with like a watermelon helmet on, and he photoshopped a Cartier crash on it. It's like Hodinky now.
Oh my God.
It was pretty fun. It was
That
pretty
is that is actually pretty on the nose, but
good. Yeah,
it's a sad state of affairs the watch industry is in, right? Unfortunately, we've been talking about this, so we won't go back into it,
yeah.
but
No, they're kind of
very
reeling.
interesting.
They're looking. You know what it is? They, like I said, they kind of have to maintain that momentum that they picked up, and it's almost impossible. It was
Yeah.
so white hot. It was so like talk of the town for so long that it was impossible to keep that level of
Yeah, I mean the industry is changing,
popularity up.
and now too, I mean, like everyone's just kind of spinning their wheels in preparation for Watches and Wonders. We're gonna have more brands at Watches and Wonders. It's coming in a few weeks. Everyone's kind of like just idling by with just basic content because they're waiting for the big
I
stuff
have
to
noticed that.
everyone's quiet right now because everyone's anticipating. Everyone's doing their yearly, concept pieces that we know will never exist. Everyone's trying to say, "Ooh, I got the skinny on leaks," you know, and it's always funny too with like Rolex. Everyone's like, "Oh, these are leaked images." I'm like, if I was Rolex and something was leaked, I would just not make it, and that probably happens all the time, every year, because there's always some leak. But if I was them, I would just be like, yeah, we just aren't going to make that now because somehow it got out.
It would be funny if they just held it to the next year and be like, "Oh, did you have information?" Yeah. No, they leak Tudor. That's what they like to do, right? It's always Tudor that gets leaked 2 days early, 3 days early.
I will never forget when the PO1 got leaked.
Oh gosh, yeah.
because I mean this was
Everybody's like, no,
this is
this
well, no,
can't be it.
but it was that was the thing. It's like all the leaks were coming to like fruition, and some of them had come true. And this was years ago. Um, but I remember I will never forget. I was in my apartment on the couch, and somebody leaked the PO1. Like this is coming. It's going to be like a retro inspired. And it was the year we thought we were getting the Tudor
I was
sub.
gonna say that was the tutor sub year. I don't know if you were
Yeah,
on the same page, but yes,
yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah.
100% right. That was the tutor
And
sub.
everyone was thinking it was going to be the Tudor sub. All the marketing was communicating that it was going to be, and everyone was convinced. And then this thing got leaked, and everyone's like, "All right, who's been messing around with Photoshop and who's been making
Yeah,
ugly
which
watches?"
troll dropped this?
Exactly. And then it came out, everyone was like, "Oh," and it was so funny to see everyone pivot because everyone had to take their foot out of their mouth and then start, marketing this thing like, "Oh, this is a great new watch. It's got a locking hinge,
This
lugs
is
that
a
unlock the bezel."
tribute to a watch that
It
was
was, it
made, but it
was,
wasn't made. And
it was so funny to see all the seals clapping, when 2 days before everyone was roasting this thing because it was
yeah, yeah, that
absolutely
was
horrible.
those were the best times, man. That was when it was still fun because you're like, no way do we would make stuff like this. But like there was a lot of anticipation in the air, man. I don't know
Yeah,
if that's still there. But like I said, it's hard to maintain that level of intensity, man.
yeah.
The industry and the marketing had. It was just something in the air at that point.
Yeah, I mean 100%, man. It's entirely different now, and everyone's just buying time. I mean, how could you not be? You know, everything's going to change in 3 weeks, so we will see what we get, and I'm
Yep.
sure everyone's going to lose their mind, and it'll be cool, and it'll be fun, and we'll have some meme fodder
I've
again,
been
which will be nice.
stashing templates, bro. I've been stashing them.
This is
I'm
this is
ready.
this is this is Bro's Super Bowl. He's anxiously preparing for this moment.
It's like the old gunslinger where you see him flicking the putting the bullets in one by one in the revolver. Ready. Let's
Just
go.
ready to unload. I love it. I love it.
That's it. That's it. All right. We got some new stuff this week. Funny enough, the first one my wife put me onto because it's the John Mayer
Oh
AP Royal
yeah.
Oak. Not that I would ever give a damn about this watch, but she was hyped about it. She goes, she just writes to me, John Mayer Royal Oak, and I look and I'm like, oh yeah. I was like 187th hour or whatever, and she's like, not bad. I was like, get the hell out of here.
Hey man, you might have gotten the green light. You don't know it.
I mean, objectively decent looking watch.
No, it's a beautiful watch. I mean, I can care less about the association with John Mayer, but we know he's a huge AP guy. I miss the old days of John Mayer when he was an IWC big pilot guy, but it is what it is now. He's moved up the ladder, as they say. But I mean, objectively, a really beautiful perpetual calendar. AP does them well. This one I think is no exception to that. And the dial is insane. Like it's a very handsome look dial.
Yeah, we were a little disappointed to find out that was an embossed style. I think we both thought there was some sort of like shards of something, diamond, crystal, whatever in it. But
Yeah. It almost looks like it's encrusted with like sapphire. It's
yeah,
got this rich,
exactly.
dark blue
Yep,
tones to it. It's got a very distinctive geometrical shape. It really reminds me, bro, like if you remember from like science class back in the day when you would find like crystals inside of like a rock, they would show you like crystal formations that come in like inside
like a
rocks.
geode.
Yeah, exactly. It almost looks like that. And then we found out that essentially it's an embossing technique that AP PVDs to make this color. Now, I will say this though, it's very dynamic. It's not a muted shade because depending on the geometric profile of the dial, you get darker or lighter shades of the blue, which is really cool. My thing is I wonder if the dials will be inherently different or because of the embossing, they're essentially the same.
Oh, true. Yeah, that's a good point.
Because embossing is done with a die, so they'll take a metal
Right.
die and they
It's like a
stamp.
cat. Yeah, casting.
They
I get
they,
it.
they Well, it's not a casting because basically casting is like poured metal, right? Like you take a
Sorry. Yeah, that
molten
was a
metal.
bad word. I meant like a forming to
Yes,
yes.
yes.
Yeah.
So
I
you
see what you're
take
saying.
the metal dial, which is typically brass because it's malleable and easy to work with, and then you take a steel die, which is they put it on a press and they press it into into the dial, and that's what
Right.
creates the texture.
So it'll be interesting to have two of them next to each other. Not that you would, given there are only 200 of them, but if you ever
Yeah,
have two next to each other, it'd be interesting to see if they're the same or not,
yeah.
or if they could
Now,
just maybe at least
now the only
rotate the die a little
well,
bit and stamp
I
it.
mean, and it's possible. The other thing too is I know from dies, like when watch manufacturers use dies to make dials, they have to remake them after so many because
Oh, that makes sense.
it starts to dull out the
Yep.
die. So
Yep.
you have to make a new version of it to continue the process.
Yeah, keep everything
Um,
nice and sharp.
exactly.
All right. Well, that is cool.
But
Again, like we said,
pretty watch.
yeah, nice looking watch.
Much better than the Travis Scott we got last year, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, I think AP is becoming the happy meal of watches where they're just going to give one to every celebrity now, and you get to pick your happy meal. Travis Scott got one of those too.
Yeah. I mean, and yeah. I mean, this is maybe the year of the collab. We thought it was going to be the sports collab, but maybe it's just the collab in general, where high profile brands are going to start manufacturing pieces specifically for people. I mean, look, when you think about it, we got the Ben Clymer G Shock, we got the Ed Sheeran G Shock. We started this out with like kind of like the John Mayer G Shocks. We got Cactus Jack's watch at the end of last year. Now we have a John Mayer AT. I mean, soon you're going to have brands just making watches for John Mayer, and then those will be specialty edition watches.
Yeah,
There's obviously a market for it.
yeah, I suppose. Let's keep it moving here. Seiko's got some stuff out. They have a diver line out that very much resembles the one that they have already had, which is kind of strange. So it's the same shape case as like the SPB like 143, sort of that H case diver, almost looks like a 62 Moss, but they've dropped the sizing down a little bit to 40 by 13, and I think it's 300 meters, and they dropped a new movement in it. It's got a 430 date, which will piss off a lot of people, but I like that they did do the circular date that I enjoy very much from a la Bell and Ross. And these are, I think, what was it? I think these are like 1,400 or something. They're like kind of dumbly expensive.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, they look cool. I'd be tempted to check one out, but you can get the original one that I was just talking about for much cheaper now. Like you can get those in
Yeah,
like the under 1,000. So it's I don't know if you would even go that route if that means that much more to
but
you.
these are high, right?
That's
These
what
are
I
higher
said.
price point.
These are in like the mid, like they're like 13, 1,400, something like that.
Okay, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Okay, okay. I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
I
they got
mean,
a blue, they got a black, they got a gilt. The blue's
I
kind
mean,
of nice. They haven't really
they
offered that yet, but
they look awesome. I mean, they really do look awesome. And I think the market's been asking for this for a while. I just don't know if the market's ready for the price point.
yeah,
That's my only thing with this because the watch looks great. I think it's a great collection. The profile is much better. The
they improved the
proportions are much
bracelet
better.
too. They said
It's
they shortened the links to 8 millimeters because I guess people must have griped about the bracelet. So I think it's a little more of a contoured fit.
yeah. But I mean, it looks nice, and it's got the a newer caliber movement as well. Man, the date placement is horrible.
Yeah, that well, that
I
was what I was saying. It's bound to piss off a lot of people.
but it's not even like a true 430. It's like it's almost
It's like
it's
four
in
35.
it's in the minute track.
No, yeah.
Whoa, I did not know it was that far away. Because normally, like the Seiko's 430 date is normally like on the other side of the indice. You know what I mean? Like it's typically not that distracting.
It's a little more central, yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit more central. It's closer into the center of the dial.
Right.
This is definitely not that at all. Oh my gosh.
No, that's way out there. I didn't even notice it was on there until I was like, hey, wait a minute. Wait a
And
minute.
honestly, at that point, just do a no date. Like why?
Actually, I think those would look pretty sweet in no date, to be honest.
But that's my point, right? Like at that point, if that's the concession you have to make, because obviously you shrunken down the case, you shrunken down the dial aperture, everything around the watches has miniaturized because people want a smaller timepiece. At that point, you either do a traditional 3 o'clock date, call it a day, or you do a no date. This this is off-putting to me. I typically don't care. This is, I think, a little much because it's almost in the chapter ring. It's so far away.
It's pretty
You know,
obnoxious.
it's, and here's the thing too. As soon as those hands move around the dial, at some point, you won't be able to see your date anyway.
Yeah, it's like I said, there's some puzzling aspects to this one. The price point is also quite high. I don't know how it's going to do. I mean, listen, people went and bought that 62 Moss reedition that they just dropped. That was $3,500, and they bought it out. So I don't know. Apparently, people still got bread to throw around. But for me, this is kind of high. I'd at least have to get it probably secondhand. I don't think I'm paying 14, 13 hundo for this.
Yeah, yeah,
But I it's tough because I also think they're trying to just do that. Like I think they're just trying to increase their sort of brand equity overall in general. They're trying to bring up those prices and push into that higher price bracket, which I get, which kind of everybody's trying to do. I mean, we talk about that all the time, like Ori are 8, 10,000 now. So
yeah. They're getting high. They're not quite that high yet, but they're. I mean,
I think the original PPX was like
they're sitting pretty around five,
yeah,
five to
like
six.
so. It's kind of just something
This
we have
this
to
this
accept.
this has to kill you a little bit
What's that?
as a Seiko fan. Like this has to kill you. This move up market.
Yeah. Why do you think I've been buying Seiko fives? It's
Yeah.
just what it is. Sign of the
And,
times.
and the thing that kills me is like there's to this day there's not really a Seiko 5 that I really want outside of our Res KX.
Yeah.
Outside of that, there's not a Seiko 5 that I'd be like, this is the one. Like this is the one to get because there's always like for me the whole collection it's 80% good, and then there's like that last 20% that's missing. Like just give me a Seiko 5 diver, please. Give
That's
me
how
an
they
actual
get you to
diving one.
spring 900 for a Seiko diver.
100%.
Yeah.
That's the whole marketing
Yeah,
strategy, right?
yeah, yeah.
It gives you just enough that you're like, for just a little bit more, I'll get what I actually want. And then here's this, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
So
no.
I mean, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. But I mean, these Seiko 5s are everywhere. People love them. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many people that I've seen wearing them. I mean, there's a guy in my local hardware store. He's a young kid. He's probably maybe 18. And I walked into the hardware store today and I was wearing my Seamaster, my 300. He goes, "Hey man, what kind of watch you wearing?" I was like, "Oh, it's a Seamaster, it's an Omega." And he's like, "Can I see it?" And he was wearing a Seiko 5. And I was like, "Oh, dude, yeah, I like your Seiko." So I took off my watch and I gave it to him. He's like, "Dude, this is amazing. I've never held this nice of a watch before." I was like, "Don't worry, you can hold it. You can try it on if you want to."
Give
Like
it a year, my friend.
I'm super cool. And he's like, "Oh man, I'm really into watches." I'm like, "Yeah, I was noticing your Samurai because he had a Samurai on. He had a Seiko 5 the first time I met him. Then he had a Samurai, so I know he has multiple." He's like, "Yeah, you had a different watch on last time." Because yeah, this is my Samurai. I mod them, so he's like huge into the Seiko modding community.
Okay.
And I'm like, this is cool. So next time I see him, I'm gonna go take him some swag and say what's up because he's a cool kid, and he's the kind of guy that probably nobody in his friend group is into watches.
Yeah, for sure.
He's
For sure.
probably the only guy that's there.
They
And I
think
was
he's like
like,
the old man. Yeah.
he's like, "Dude, you wear those things? What? That's weird, you know." But he's super smart kid, very friendly, and definitely passionate about watches. So it's cool. There's hope for the next generation. You
Yeah.
know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So they also put out something a little more on the nose for them, and that's I want to say these are meant to almost pick up where the old SARB references
Yes,
left
that was
off.
immediately where I was thinking.
So this is the SPB 463, 465, 467, and then you got a couple slightly strangers from skeletonized action
You, you, you
469,
you don't
471.
you don't need to talk about the last two.
Nah, I don't think so either. I would skip right over those. But the first three, so you've got sort of a white, a black, and almost like it's like a light salmon or
Yeah,
a beige.
it's right between copper and salmon.
Yeah,
It's not quite copper. It's not quite salmon.
yeah, but they're heavily textured. They're supposed to mimic silk, allegedly, And
Okay.
yeah, I mean they've got these nifty bracelets look really comfortable. They kind of look similar to the Seiko bracelet, but not as aggressive.
Yeah. Because
But
these are dress watches. These
these
are
are
dress
classy.
watches.
Yeah, these are dressy, sporty watches. Um, I'm not sure if I love the handset, but I like the watches overall. I think they're neat. I think they're, like I said,
See,
going to fit into that sort of sweet spot that everybody really liked about the old SARB models. You know,
and this is the thing. How you gonna do a 3 o'clock date on this one?
that's what I was thinking.
You did a 3 o'clock date on this one, and you could have gone with a 4:30 date because it wouldn't have been as obtrusive.
Yep.
But then on the other one, you went with a weird 4:30 date. It's like Jesus. But to your point, the handset. It kind of reminds me of some like the Bambinos that we've seen in the past with like that Lancet style handset.
Mm-hmm.
It's sharp. It's more of a daggery style. It looks good, but I'm wondering what the over under is on when these become tutti frutti color dials.
Oh, like you're gonna get a blue, a pink, a red,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
an orange. Yeah,
Because these are super muted. They're for me personally, they're almost too muted.
they're
I'm
pretty
wondering if the
pretty
dial
subdued.
stings, yeah, I wonder if the dial stings more in natural light, but these look a little bit like the cream, it's more like an opaline white, like a cream color, or like an ecru, and then the black is almost like charcoal black. And then, like I said, the other one's like kind of in between copper and salmon. But I mean, the watches look nice. The bracelet looks really comfortable. Obviously, a nice taper to it. Looks much more like modern, but still kind of a vintagey piece. But these dials just don't excite me, in the color themselves. I'm sure the texturing looks awesome, but the dial itself and how it's colored does not strike any fancy in me at all.
Yeah, and I think they are 40 millimeters about,
Okay.
which is I don't know, might be a little high for this style of watch.
Yeah.
Just given the
But it is also a 3-day power reserve watch, so maybe they had to have a little bit more room to put the movement in there.
right. Yeah, but and I'm seeing, I think, what is that, 1,050 euro? Still kind of high.
Yeah, man. They're
Still
just, I
kind of
mean,
high.
anything Presage and anything prospects these days is just going to be 1,000 plus. I mean, that's just going to be the way it is now forever.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Even being at the show and you're like, just curious how much is this, and you start hearing numbers that start with like nine, and I'm like, ee. It's just state of the game, I suppose.
I know, man. We get. I mean, and the thing is, though, it's crazy when you look at it. How fortunate were we to get into the watch
I
collecting world
know, I
when we
know.
did?
I'm very unappreciative.
I mean, could you imagine trying to come up now? Like the entry price point Seiko is $500. When
Yeah,
we were coming up, the entry price one was $80.
yeah. Remember the old SNKs? Yeah,
Yeah, man.
those were the days.
You could buy an SNK off of eBay for $75. That was with tax and shipping. You know what I mean? Like you could buy, I mean, I remember when I bought my first Seiko diver, it was a drunk eBay purchase when I was in college, and I think I paid $80 for it, like 80. It was shipped from Singapore on a prayer, and I hope to God it came. It showed up in this like super bubble wrap package and everything like that. And I was like, okay, it actually works, and it's actually a real watch.
Here we go.
Um, Here we go, full send. But now it's like, these young kids, like this is what they have to look forward to. Like this is the entry level Seiko. I mean, this is a Tissot in price.
Yep.
I mean, it's a Hamilton in price.
Yeah, I mean, you think trying to put this up against a PRX, that's a tough sell.
It's a tough sell, but even then, take it a step further. Remember the Chrono that we talked about last week
Yeah.
or the last time we recorded? It's what, $1,500, $1,200 for a manual one chronograph. This is a 3-day power reserve in a dress watch. That's crazy to me,
It is crazy.
you know?
Yep.
What are you going to do?
What are
What
you
are you
gonna
going to do?
do? What are you gonna do? We also got a new version of the Christopher Ward C65 Dune GMT. Funny enough, because Dune is all the rage nowadays.
You know,
So
we didn't talk about the Dune Venturas.
oh yeah, that is true.
Not
That
that
is
there's
true.
much to talk about, but we
Still
definitely
fun.
didn't talk about this.
So, but this guy's comes in at 38 mils, a little smaller, 11.9 thick, a little more friendly on the wrist. It's got a pretty neat color scheme. You got sort of this olive green and cream motif to it on the white
Hmm.
dial. You got some strap choices, a bracelet. It's a nice looking watch overall. And having I saw Mike down at Mike Pearson. For those who
Hmm.
don't know, he is now no longer at Zodiac. He's over at Christopher Ward now doing his thing. So saw him. He's having a ball with the brand. I think he really likes the ability for the brand to be agile because they're not necessarily beholden to the shareholders of a big conglomerate.
Corporate,
Like,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So I think he's
I mean,
having a good time.
they're fiercely independent. You know, they're it's a
Yeah,
small. I mean, today you would consider this a standard brand, but it really is
I
still a
remember when
micro
they were
brand.
a micro brand.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like this is, and that I love about Christopher Ford is they've always been very well priced for what you are getting, and they've done some crazy funky stuff that certainly commands
I'm not gonna lie.
higher
Bel
dollar.
Canto is all the rage. That's what they were all. Everybody was talking about it. District Time was Bel
But
Canto.
you know what? It should be because that's an awesome freaking watch to have a striking hour every hour at that price point was like 4 to 5 grand. That's something that's unique enough in a watch collection that makes sense to spend that kind of money because literally nobody else does it. And anybody that might do it is 10 times that price.
Oh, for sure.
You know what I mean? So how could it not be the big focus? But the fact that they can do something like that and still produce something like this that the average person can get and feel like they have a solid, robust, well-built watch, I think that that's really cool.
Yeah, and even they have. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but they have like sort of a sporty dress watch out now. It comes in like light blue and all the.
Oh, it's the 12.
Is it the 12? Is there a miniature version of that too?
They made a 36
Okay,
millimeter
that
now.
was what it was.
Yeah,
I was gonna say I saw one that was considerably smaller. I didn't think it was the same watch, but that
yeah.
must be it. But yeah,
It's got the integrated bracelet, right?
yeah, it looked good. It looked
Yeah,
really good.
yeah.
I picked that one up.
Everyone that I've seen that has posted about it, or some of my local watch collector buddies, I think one of them has one now. They're raving about it. I mean, the finishing is really good. It's obviously a higher step up for them, but it's still very fairly priced given what it is, given the size it comes in. And it's kind of riffing off of that Constellation, integrated bracelet, that PRX style, but giving you a much better finished watch overall with a better movement.
Right.
It looks good. It looks good. The 12 is great, and everyone that I talk to loves it. And plus, you get the strap option. You can do rubber strap. You can do bracelet. There's a lot of cool stuff that they do.
Yeah. And I guess last but not least, we could talk about a new white dial Speedmaster, if I suppose.
If you want to get to that, we can.
I suppose we could get to that. So the Daniel Craig hype is real. The watch we saw on his wrist is a real thing. It is not a one-off. It is here. And it looks great. I mean, I think everybody I've seen is in agreement. It's a very good looking watch. I mean,
Yeah,
you have your people out there splitting hairs between, I was poking fun at the Daytona folks. Um, but at the end of the day, I mean, you have a very handsome watch with a great movement, a wonderful updated bracelet. It looks really good. It does.
yeah,
And it doesn't have the panda motif, which I like. It's
yeah.
just straight up black and white. It
I
looks
was happy.
akin. It looks akin to its Seamaster brother.
Yeah, I mean that's honestly the best way to describe it. If you can imagine the White Dell Master as a Speedmaster, that's essentially what you're getting in this new
Right.
version. And the thing that really upset me about this watch, it's not the watch itself, it's the response to it.
It's the red tipped chrono second hand. Nah, I'm kidding. I actually like that quite a lot.
I too, because it allows it to be legible. You know what I mean? Like
Well,
you can
then
see
it
it.
pulls the red Speedmaster in just enough.
Yeah. Because here's the thing, the Seamaster's red tip too, and nobody complains about that.
No,
You
I
know what
was
I mean?
completely joking about that.
But overall, it's the perception. Like, oh, Omega just is mailing it in, just making a white dove. Like, You guys have been asking for this. This is one of the few brands in the watch industry that is actually trying to give you products that you want. Okay. Especially at the luxury segment. You can get this in independence all day long. There's no question about that. But in the luxury segment, there's very few brands that actually listen to your consumers and give you something that they want. We know everyone's been asking about a White Dial Speedmaster, not just in recent memory, but for decades. Okay. I remember when I still sold them back in the day, and people were like, okay, so what other colors does the Moonwatch come in? And you're like, this is it. Black and white. That's the only color. And they're like, there's not like another dial? No. This is the Moonwatch. It's the way it has been, the way it will continue to be for all of eternity. Okay. And so for a lot of people, they've been asking for a white dial, and typically Omega has done any type of white dial in a specialty version
Yeah,
of it.
limited editions and special editions. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there was a few that were done in the 70s, I'm sorry, in the 80s and 90s for other markets, the Italian market, the German market. They call
And
them the albinos. There's
yeah,
other
one of them is a
versions.
panda.
One of them is a Panda, the Mitsukoshi dial.
Yep, Mitsukoshi. That's
Um, there's the Alaska project. We had
one of
both
the Snoopies is white now.
the last two Snoopies were
Yeah.
white dials, white with blue and white with black,
Yep.
respectively, right? So these white dials have always been elusive or specialty models, or they were models never intended for the U.S. market, which the Mitsukoshi was not, and the Albino was not, and some of the other ones, like the German market versions, were not either. So we're finally getting what people have been asking about for a very long time. It's a good-looking watch. Is it a technological revolution? Absolutely not. It doesn't have to
All
be.
right, but I also wouldn't sell the 3861 short. It's a pretty darn good technical
100,
watch.
100%. It's master chronometer, it's coaxial, it's all the stuff that you find in the brand new 3861 Speedmasters. This one just happens to have a better finished dial in white, and it's got a nice lacquered, glossy tone to it. It looks good. But, when Rolex does this, and all they do is change a
Well,
dial color,
here
everyone is losing their mind
here's
about it.
here's what I would how I would put it to people. And they could answer honestly or not. If they put out a blue sub this year, would you lose your mind? You would.
Mhm.
That's it. That's all I'm gonna say. You would. There's
If,
nothing
if
wrong with wanting a watch in a different color. I've said I wanted the newer Pelagos in a blue. Still haven't got it. Might come this year. I don't know, but they're not doing it. I would think that would be a banger of a watch. But you know, you sit and
100%.
you wait. But I really genuinely don't want a black, so I wouldn't get that.
Yeah, and
So what are you gonna do?
you
Force it? You're gonna force yourself to buy a watch you don't want? I don't think so. I think it's okay to have high hopes for dial colors and stuff, but especially when it's something that they've never really done in a regular production model before, it's kind of
correct.
a big deal.
Well, you think so? I mean, all the Speedy fans are loving this, but all the people that are like trolls in the watch community, they're
Yeah, but
they're
they're
all
not happy
hating.
with anything.
I know that, but it's just like is that you can't have your
They're
cake and
unhappy
eat it
with
too.
themselves.
It,
That's what
it,
it
it
is.
I mean, that's 100% true. But it's like the moment there's a new type of colorway for a Submariner, or the bezel's going to come out in purple, or we're going to get a new Coke, or whatever the hype is surrounding right now, Watches and Wonders, whatever is going to come is going to come. You guys are going to lose your absolute minds over it. But the moment that one brand gives you what you want, now you don't want it. It doesn't make any
Yeah,
sense
but
to me.
those aren't the people who are going to buy this watch anyway. Those are people
No,
who just want to say that they want something and then don't
talk
care
crap,
because they're not trying to
talk
spend their
crap
money
about it
there
later.
anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But I do like it. I think it's very, very good looking. I think for if I was a collector, which I have a Moonwatch, I'm wearing it now. It's a Hesalite Speedmaster 3861. I think if I was going to do this would make sense because I have a Hesalite in the OG version.
Yeah, it
For
would give you a
me,
different little
I
something
would go
else.
with the Sapphire because Sapphire Crystal, you get the movement, and it's a completely different aesthetic.
And not for
Right?
nothing, if this is the only run they do of these, this thing is going to be very hard to track down and very valuable.
As far as I understand, what's been communicated to my dealer friends that are still in the industry, this is going to be a normal core production watch that'll be sold alongside the.
Wow. But I'm just saying, like, let's say they only run this for 2 years,
I mean, yeah, yeah.
you know? this will be a, oh, what the hell, they only did this for 2 years watch, but also I'll pay 20 grand for it type of watch. Like that's what they do. That's what we do in this industry. That we do stuff like that.
Yeah, but at least as of right now, that there's no indication that that will be the case, from what I understand. Um, if you didn't catch up, there is three references. You have sapphire crystal steel case on the sapphire bracelet, which is
Right.
the brush and polish bracelet. Then you have the integrated rubber strap from the moonshine goals that came out a couple years ago. That
Yeah. Yep.
is such a good look. And I
I
think
could see that.
honestly, my personal favorite out of all of them is the perforated leather strap.
The like a racing style.
It's a racing style perforated strap, like a rally strap, but they're both on deployment. So both the straps are on deployment. That I might have to pick up that strap for my personal Speedmaster because that is just a really cool looking strap.
Yeah, I used to actually have a brown rally that I used to throw on my Speedmaster. It looked really good, so I could totally see that. But yeah, so that was kind of the talk of the town as of late. That's most of the new stuff. One thing that we've talked a lot about, and this actually was pretty prevalent at district time because it being a micro show and all, they kind of have the ability to do what they like. I know notably Traska had a meteorite dial, and we've been talking a lot about meteorite being very popular these days. And again, not that nobody was doing it before. We know, like even on the low end, like Zelos was doing it.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen Rolex bring it out in recent memory. We've seen, Omega uses it plenty, but it's an interesting bit of material science, and even with us talking about sort of its resurgence recently, there's been some articles about it and how it's like not that special or whatever, but I think it goes a little deeper than that. Like it's an interesting concept because yeah, it's not necessarily something that's super scarce, and you would think it would be because, well, how often do things come down to earth? But you don't need that much material to make a dial per se.
Mm-mm.
But also the margin of error and making these dials is apparently very small.
Very high. It's very,
It's a
yeah.
it's a very high fail rate thing to do. So when you're trying to punch a circular tiny hole in the middle of a piece of meteorite that's already shaped like a wafer, I hear you're throwing out more than you're making at that point. Like
I
you're
have no
breaking
doubt.
them left and right because I mean you're trying to punch through a piece of, I mean, whether it's stone or alloy or whatever it is. I mean, they come in a
It,
few different flavors, but
yeah, yeah, you're right.
that's, it's a little bit more technical than, oh, you just take a rock and cut it out and drill it and call it a day. I mean, I know that there's two basically main meteors that they take samples from. There's one in
Hmm.
Sweden, I think, and one in Africa,
Hmm.
and that's where
Yeah,
most of them come from. And the other part of it is you have to also get yourself a desirable piece of the meteorite. I mean, they're not all beautiful and all made equal.
and they're
So
certainly not at the same grade.
right, that's it too. So I think it's a little more broad than just simply saying, brushing everything with the term meteorite.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not catching what we're putting down, there was an article that came out. We don't need to say which blog it was from, but it was essentially along the lines of like meteorites just really aren't that special, nor are they really that rare. That is 100% completely false. Because if you think about this, whatever meteorite you are talking about, and there's two main ones, and you're absolutely correct. There's the Gibeon meteorites, which
The other one
Omega
is a
has
lot harder
used.
to pronounce.
Yes, yes. I still don't know how to pronounce it yet, but the Gibeon meteorite, it crashed into Gibeon, Africa, about 4 billion years ago, so give or take, and it impacted, detonated, and they found this meteorite. Now, originally, when it was set up, is the Gibeon meteorite portion of it would remain as like a part of the town in which it was located, and then another portion of it would be sold off to basically help fund the town in Africa. It
Which
was a
makes
way
sense.
to, it was an export for them, okay, because it was such a rare, piece of material. 'Cause keep in mind, this is frozen space rock from a detonated planet, or another meteorite impacted something, a foreign celestial body, and sent this frozen piece of space rock that's largely comprised of iron, by the way,
Yep.
hurtling towards our atmosphere over billions of years. then for it to burn up in our
I was gonna say
atmosphere.
it had to survive
Yeah, it had to
getting
survive.
through. Yep.
It had to survive entry, burn up in our atmosphere, impact, and then somebody had to find it billions of years later and then turn it into a watchtower. For you to sit here and write an article of 500 words, which actually it was much less than that, but for you to sit here and say, hey, you know what, just because I'm seeing more meteorite, it makes it somehow not rare. That is a complete oversimplification of the entire process for that meteorite to even appear on your watch. Just because brands are using it right now in mass does not mean it's any less rare than it actually is.
I mean, hey, gold is technically rare, right? It's scarce. I'm gonna
Yeah,
quote air quote scarce, right? That's what makes it valuable. We use that an awful lot, don't we?
yeah. I mean, and you and I were talking off air about this before, and you brought up one of the best examples of this. You said diamonds. And I don't even know why I
Yeah,
didn't even think of that, but it's 100%
right.
true.
De
Diamonds,
Beers makes it again air quotes scarce, and we
yeah,
pay a ton of money for it. Now the lab grown is really putting the kibosh on that, but
yeah. I mean, in certain markets, and I was talking with a friend of mine about this because they carry the lab grown stuff at his store, and he's like, yeah, he's like the margins on lab grown are crazy because we're trying to sell these things at a fair margin. Basically what it costs us to make or what it costs us to buy at wholesale, we'll charge 3 times the price. He goes, there are retailers out there that are charging 6 times to 9 times the price of what it costs them to actually get the watch to sell a lab grown diamond. But even still, at the highest margins that they could create, it's still significantly less than the same thing in a modern stone. Like there, he was telling me that this guy was buying something around a 2.5 to 3 carat diamond for his wife or for his fiance, who will be his fiance, and he's gonna buy that ring all said and done for maybe 5 grand, 6 grand, maybe. If it was a real 3 carat natural stone, it'd be close to
yeah,
$300,000.
insanely. Once you go above like a carat, it just goes
It,
exponent, like
yeah,
parabolic.
yeah. But these aren't inherently rare. Go to any jewelry store on earth and ask to see some diamonds. They got them by the boatload.
Yeah,
If it's any jewelry store that's notable, they will have hundreds, if not thousands, of these loose stones. If they do any type of custom work or mounting or anything like that, they have hundreds of thousands of these in the back in the vault. Okay. So these are extremely rare by our understanding of them, but they're everywhere. And yet the cost associated with this is astronomically, right? But the idea to just take something so simple of a concept and then to completely oversimplify the entire process for this to get there is crazy. Now the other thing I was getting to about the Gibeon meteorite, um, part of that meteorite was allowed to be sold to basically fund the town. Well, essentially they ran out and they were running low on their stock, and their local government said, look, we are no longer selling any Gibeon meteorite because we don't have much of it left. You guys have bought it all. That's the thing that I don't think people understand about meteorite. It might be prevalent right now. It might be something that's cool to get right now because you're seeing it in the marketplace. It doesn't mean you'll be able to get it 2 or 3 years from now. Because if everyone's using meteorite, they're buying up with available stocks that they can get of this material. It is finite. Once it's gone, it is gone. You can't find any more of it. You have to go and find any more of it. The problem is there's a lot fewer meteorites that survive impact, that survive entry through our atmosphere than diamonds that can naturally grow in the ground. Okay? So it's insane. Now the new meteorite that everyone is using now, I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm gonna butcher it. But it's found in Sweden. It's called, I think, Mwanalust
yeah,
meteorite.
that sounds right.
We're gonna say it's correct. I'm probably pronouncing something phonetically. If anybody's listening to this that's from Sweden, please correct me. I want to know exactly how to pronounce this correctly. But it's essentially a very similar composition to the Gibeon meteorite, but it's actually even older than Gibeon. by about 500,000 years. So the Mona Lisa meteorite is anywhere between 450 to 4.5 billion years old. So you're looking at 4.45 to 500 4.5 billion years old, which is crazy. It's an extremely old meteorite. Like Gibeon was old. This is even older than that. But the unique thing that's special about this, because of the high iron composition, it has a very similar crystalline structure, or the Widmanstätten pattern that you see with Gibeon, which is what made those two meteorites even more desirable.
And that's that sort of crisscross etched look that
Correct.
some people will try to replicate, but that's how you tell an authentic meteorite, is because you can't really fake that pattern,
No,
which
and
which
it's
only occurs in space,
it
in
only it
formation
only
in space.
and subsequently it's the cooling process over thousands of years. So I was looking up some of this in preparation for the podcast today. And essentially what happens is you have, frozen space rock. Like I said, it's from a detonated planet or an impact at some point. It hurls its way to Earth. It's frozen space rock. Then it's rapidly heated as it's going through the atmosphere. And then it's further heated as it detonates into the ground. Okay. And most of these meteorites of any size, they'll create cataclysmic impacts. Okay, these are massive craters, massive formations, massive explosions that these things will generate because there's so much force of them hurling through space. They have so much velocity. Um, Now, once they impact, a lot of that it generates a lot of power, but you have to remember the large part of it is still frozen. So over time, that rapid cooling to rapid hot and then subsequent recooling again over thousands, millions, and billions of years is
Yep.
what creates this Widmanstätten pattern.
And to me, you would think that would increase the inherent value of these things because, I mean, good God, right? We talk about oil being valuable and it gets formed at a faster rate than that. That you think the slow process by which these are formed would make them significantly more valuable. I mean, we kind of just set arbitrary prices on things because at the end of the day, nothing's worth anything. But you would think that it would make it more valuable, but it definitely makes it cool.
And the other thing too that people don't understand, the Widmanstätten pattern, um, which is named after the scientist that basically discovered that if you take acid and you etch meteorite, so basically you place acid on the top surface of the meteorite, it'll eat away the top layer or
It
some of
brings
the,
out, yeah,
and it
that
brings out the
pattern. Yeah.
striation pattern, right? So it's named after the guy's name is Widmanstätten. He's the one that discovers it. I think a German scientist or something like that. And he discovered this many, many, many years ago. Uh, but what's interesting about this patterning is even if let's say I take the same sample, bro, and I sliced it into 4 die, even if they were back to back to back to back, the way that the Widmanstätten pattern is created and how it's revealed, it is literally impossible for the same dials that came from the same sample back to back to back for them to be the same. It's impossible,
Wow.
which to me is the coolest part of meteorite because it is literally 4.5 billion year old space rock. It is a part of another celestial body that we found and turned it into a watch dial. This is the watch is 4.5 billion years in the making.
Well, that's my thing. You could be wearing the core of an ancient planet on your wrist and not even bat an eye. But when you think about how significant that is compared to the life of a human being, like that's kind of insane.
It it's such a long amount of time we can't even fathom how long that is. And I think that that's why this is also so lost on people because this is not really communicated a lot. But it's just like this is ancient space. This could have come from other galaxies.
And not for nothing, in an era of watch production, I'm not going to say watchmaking, watch production, where we're picking up every cheesy gimmick to make a watch marketable and put a story on it or put history into it or drum up some provenance. Like, this is probably as cool as it's going to get.
I mean, how could it not be? You know, people lose their mind over malachite or lapis or gold
And those are
dials,
beautiful. Those are
and they're
beautiful dials.
100%, 100%. But this is so much more rare than that.
Not for nothing. If they could make a dinosaur fossil dial, right? People I
Yeah,
think would be like, well, that's pretty crazy. I mean, same difference realistically.
yeah. It was like I don't know if you remember when Romain Jerome made the dials out of like the Titanic metal.
Yeah.
Like eventually, you won't be able to get it
Yeah. How
anymore.
much of that is left?
It's eroding into the ocean. Like, you know what I mean? Like
Yep.
it's finite. Yes, there's a massive amount of it at the bottom of the ocean, but how accessible is it?
Well, we found
And
it's not very easy to get to.
yeah, well, unfortunately, we learned that the hard way. But that's the whole point here is people just because they see something as prevalent, meaning it's widely available from different brands, it does not mean inherently that it is not rare. It doesn't inherently mean that it's not expensive. It doesn't inherently mean that it's not valuable. Just because you see it on an independent brand does not mean that is the same gradation of the meteorite, the same type of selection of the meteorite, the same type of patterning that you're going to get in higher yields. I mean, if you think about this from another example, if I'm going to talk about mother of pearl, which most people don't understand mother of pearl, but if you're not familiar, every oyster that produces mother of pearl, the way that they do this is essentially they will open up the animal and they will insert usually a piece of sand inside the
Yeah, to
animal's mouth.
irritate it. Yep.
It irritates it, and what the animal does is it secretes what's called nacre. Essentially, if you were to take a microscoped cross section of this, it looks like layers of bricks, which is really interesting. But it's created layer by layer by layer, and essentially what the oyster is doing is uh, it's rolling the nacre over top of this grain of sand to coat it as a way to protect itself from
And
this
it's gonna
foreign body.
expel. Yeah. Right. To be
Okay,
able to expel it later. Yep.
and that's what creates the pearl. It's just rolling around the inside of the shell, and it's coating itself in the nacre to protect this foreign body, and that's what we use to remove pearls. Right now, the interesting thing is not only does it coat the foreign object, it also coats the entirety of its internal shell. So when you open up I said oyster, when you open up the animal, you have the nacre deposited all over the entirety of the shell. Okay. Now, to harvest mother of pearl is very difficult because depending on the animal, and every animal is going to be different, you're going to have thicker or thinner depositions of the nacre, depending on where it's located on the internal portion of the shell. And mother of pearl is wafer thin in most cases. It's extremely, extremely delicate. But my point is for all of this is within the mother of pearl, which is already a beautifully iridescent material, there's a different gradation of mother of pearl called pearled mother of pearl. It is the 20% of the overall yield of the mother of pearl shell. If we made the entire shell 100%, 80% of it is normal mother of pearl. 20% is the most vibrant, iridescent, thickest deposition of nacre. It is the most expensive version of it because it is the smallest concentration but the highest quality. And that is typically centered right around where the pearl would have existed inside of the animal. Okay. Um, that is used in the industry as a higher level material.
Right. You
But
pay more for that.
you're paying more for that, but it's a much more brilliant material in its creation. Now, can I go buy a mother of pearl tag Heuer for $1,400? Yes. Is it going to be the same mother of pearl quality as something that's a $6,000, $8,000 watch? No,
Yeah.
because they're probably using pearled mother of pearl on the higher end.
Yeah. What
But
do you think Rolex is
pearled
using on the
mother of
Pro
pearl,
Master?
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's the most brilliant portion. It's pearled mother of pearl, 100%, because it is the finest purity of the mother of pearl. So do you really think that all meteorite dials are going to be the same price? I think that would be stupid.
Yeah. And so, yeah, and I see everybody's argument seems to be, well, you can buy meteorite on eBay, but by the same token, I mean, you can buy, to put it in something dumb, you can buy meat from anywhere, right? You can order meat online. Doesn't mean it's gonna be good. Doesn't mean it has a good history, bloodline. Doesn't mean it has a good,
I
it's been
mean, you
treated
know
well.
this you know this from your background.
I'm just saying, just a total layman comparison, right?
there's a very different there's a very different gradation of quality from top choice to A5 Wagyu.
That's what
Okay,
I'm saying, right? So
You-
and
they're
looking
both
at it, listen,
steaks.
you can tell Wagyu because it's so marbled, but if you were to put, your choice against your prime, against your, CAB, whatever, normal person's gonna look at that. They're not gonna be able to tell the difference. They'll probably eat
No,
it, wouldn't be able to tell the difference.
no.
And that's just average Joe. So who
But
the hell are you gonna be to
by
look
definition,
at look at something
they're
mother of
both
pearl
steaks.
meteorite and be like, well, this is the same. This is all the same.
Yeah, but by definition, they're both steaks.
Yeah.
And a choice, ribeye you costs you $10.
You know, they both come
If
from beef cattle, right? They're both grass fed. What's the difference?
how much is an A5 Wagyu ribeye?
I don't want to talk about it. And then not only that, people are gonna like. There's certain things you can't do with that you would do with a normal steak because it'll just melt straight
Yeah,
out. Like, yeah,
it'll disintegrate.
yeah,
It's like hot and fast cooking. It's seriously, eat it. Like,
yeah, more or less because it'll melt away. It's so
yeah,
marbled, the fat will literally melt out of it, and you'll just be left with like grizzle.
but yeah, you'll be left with chewy rubber.
But by the same token, I'm sure if you took the pearled mother of pearl and mess around with it, you probably break it really easy, and then you're up the creek. But
It's just funny the oversimplification. It's like people who have no understanding of manufacturing processes at all for lunch brands are somehow telling everyone what is good and what is not good. It's like you have no concept. And that article really made me upset because it was so not like it was so short. It was not a lengthy article. I think it took me maybe a minute and a half to read it. And then there was no justification to back up the argument with any type of data that supported it. It was just basically like, hey, I said that meteorites aren't rare because I've seen them. So then, therefore, they're not rare. I was like, what? It doesn't even make sense. Logically, doesn't even make sense. You failed the book report, homie.
uh,
This is the guy who forgot there was a book report and 20 minutes before class started is in the hallway like scribbling notes on
the
posting
John
them
Mayer
to
G
Google.
Shock. Yes.
You know what I mean? It's just like he's so underprepared, so underprepared.
Yeah. I mean, part of that is also sort of, I think, where the coverage of the industry is at right now as well, where you just have, I mean, look, there's people who have turned to AI for content generation now. And in some cases, it's very painfully obvious. I'm not saying
Mhm.
that was, but I'm just saying, like,
It's so scripted and
it's
robotic.
popping up on Instagram as the how to all of a sudden, how to have AI generate you a your content creation or your faceless Instagram, and it'll run itself, and this way you could just try to get lucky and get viral and sell ads or something. I don't really know what the purpose of it is, but I'm seeing it
It's
now, and
all fake. It's all
like,
fake.
oh man, I'm like, wait till you find out that this thing is just combing the internet for basically like a really advanced Google search and giving you that,
And that's inherently what it's doing.
right? It's just
It's giving
at
you
this
what
point,
somebody programmed it to do.
it's giving you a web crawl and it's turning in the sources that you didn't want to look up. And that's what you're going to put
Yeah.
out there. You're trusting yourself with that.
Yeah. And as a larger problem, we see this all over, like all of academia.
That's what I mean. It's all over the place now. It's almost inescapable.
It's
But
I mean, these high school kids, college kids, they're using ChatGPT to write their essays for it.
probably the funniest thing was with regard to that was there was a guy in the NBA who got in trouble. He got caught with a firearm. I don't know if it was unregistered or if it was in a public place where he shouldn't have been, but people really came down on him and like, you're a role model. You have to wear. So he posts his apology, and one of these like sports kind of critic, like armchair quarterback guys, is like, "I'm not gonna lie to you. I think he used AI to write this because he's like, I just think this is extremely insincere and like basic. It was so funny. He's like, I think this is written with AI, like on national TV. You're just like, oh my god, it was really funny.
Oh, never apologize.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think that's what we've learned.
Nobody
Not even
wants your
us. I'm just
apology
talking about in
anyway.
general. Everybody, yeah, you apologize. You get nowhere. It is what it is.
Here's what it is. I did what I did.
I do what I do. All right. I think that's good. I think we've done our part. I think we've given an educational episode. We've hit a little
It's
bit of
just
everything.
about educating a little bit more, and if you're gonna write something, back it up.
Go the whole
It's
way.
okay. It's okay to have an opinion, but provide statistical data that supports that argument.
Well, that's kind of what it's all about, right? I mean, even if you have sort of an off the beat take or you have something that you're trying to put out there that isn't necessarily popular or isn't necessarily talked about, you just gotta build a case.